going to hear from Tim Freke, and we feel honoured to have the very distinguished Tim Freke, who is a philosopher, with us today. One of the 100 most spiritually influential living people on earth, according to Watkins magazine. So aren't we lucky to have him? So he is a speaker and the author of 35 books, bringing his inspirational ideas to audiences across the globe. But it is his warmth and humility that I think you will most enjoy. Not many experts in their field are willing to admit, after many years of saying one thing, that perhaps their ideas were wrong. But Tim did this, and I think that shows you the sort of man he is. Now, whilst Tim doesn't specifically focus on the heart in his work, what he does focus on, particularly in the last few years, is oneness and unity, which, as we've discovered this morning, is the heart's ultimate message. So what he's going to be talking about is hugely relevant to the heart. And so I invite you to sit back and enjoy what I know is going to be a wonderful talk. Over to you, Tim.
Thank you, Liz. Thank you for those kind words, which I'll do my best to live up to. Hello, everyone. I completely understand, because I was just doing it myself when Liz was talking, that you can just leave the camera off and you can make tea in the background and have a listen to whatever is being said. But if you would consider turning your camera on, I just love seeing your faces, because I'm looking at all of you. I'm not looking at me. And it's really nice to feel like, oh, that's the person I'm connecting with, because what I want to talk about is connection. So if you're in the mood to let me see you, that's really lovely. Oh, look at all those lovely faces arriving. Thank you. So, big heart, that's very dear to me. I discovered very early on in my life something, Liz said I've changed my mind. I have, about numbers of very important things, and I might mention a few of them today. But one thing has stayed the same. I had an awakening experience when I was very young. I was 12 years old, and it was the seed to my life, from which it's expanded one way or another. And the one thing I understood then, with the ideas that a 12-year-old had, was that what really mattered in life was love. And that's because the experience was one of being engulfed in this utterly enormous love. That's how it felt. That's how Tim responded to it. And I would describe it now as my first taste of what I call being deep awake. And I call it being deep awake because it's like being awake but deeper. It's like being the difference between, I feel like all of us are aware anyway, all the time, of you can go through life, it's like this, or when you're tired and it's like this, and, or you've had a bad day and it's like this, or whatever it is. And then there's moments where, for some reason, it's like this. And it can be anything. That's the truth. It can be anything. It can be the sun on your back. It can be falling in love. It can be tragedy, death. It can be reading a book. It can be listening to a speaker. It can be doing meditation. It doesn't have to be, though. Nearly all of my most influential deep awake experiences, the ones that have really changed my life, and set me off into a deeper level of exploration, have all just been, none of them have been, I think, when I've been meditating or doing anything spiritual. Now, that's not to say that all the things I've done to explore spirituality haven't played a huge part in preparing me for what just spontaneously happens. So what I'd like to do is explore that with us today. And I would like us to share a deep awake experience. Why not? I don't want to just talk about it. Let's actually do it together. You've come here with the intention to explore the heart. Well, let's do it. Let's actually do it. So I'm gonna talk a little bit to begin with, to talk about how I now approach this, which will give you some things to contemplate later on, and then to lead you in something which based on the ideas I've shared, and see what happens. And the fact that we're doing it together, I think, makes a big difference. I'll talk about that as well. So most of my early books were on the what gets called the perennial philosophy, and the idea there is that if you go around the world to different cultures, different times in history, you will find human beings describing a similar experience in different languages, literally, of course, different languages, and trying to understand what it is in different ways. But there's something in common here, and the thing which is in common is this profound sense of oneness or communion, being one with everything and everyone. And that the response to that is this, what I call big love. Now, why big love? Why love? And I think what is an emotion? What is it? We have all this range of different emotions. What are they? And I think the easiest way to understand it is that you are sensing and making sense of the universe all the time in a fabulously complex way, which enables you to understand the funny noises I'm making. It enables you to know who you are in your story. It enables you to get from where you are to the bathroom. It enables you to turn up here and run Zoom. It's like there are a million just to catch a ball, enormous amount of ideation involved all the time. And then there's a response to it. So, if someone runs through the room with a big axe, your body will go, whoa, and it will flood you with either fear or ready to fight or whatever the response is. Those are very primitive emotions. As things get more complicated, there's a lot of more rarefied emotions. And love is one of the fundamental responses for when you feel connection. That's why you find it when you fall in love and you dissolve into each other. And it's just the best. That thing you had, do you remember the first time when you were young? Like, oh my God, what's going on? This is just so beautiful. Or a mother with a child, or a father, or a friend, or a sunset, or a piece of music. And suddenly you are one with it in such or communing, let's say, in such a profound way. And the body's response is what we call love. So I would say love is how oneness feels. And that love that you feel for a lover or a friend well, what happens when that oneness expands out from this one person and you feel it with everything and everyone? And that's what in the old Christian tradition was called agape, what in the East is called metta, the Buddhist tradition say, and which I just call big love. And because the emotion is something which can come and go, I also think of it as a universal benevolence, which actually grows. It grows steadily. I've certainly seen it in the decades that I've been exploring this. It's just grown and grown and grown and grown and grown. This wishing well to everything and everyone, which comes from it. So the traditional idea in the perennial philosophy is that somehow you're already this perfect thing. You've fallen into the world. You need to get away because the world is not a very nice place. It's an illusion. It's a trap. It's a prison. And you need to get back. And when you do, you have this nice experience. And one way or another, you find that repeated in different forms. And I have come to the conclusion in the last 10 or 20 years that that's wrong. That's a way of seeing it in a particular time in history for very good reasons. It moved it along. And the focus for me over the last period of my life has been to look at where that spiritual understanding needs to go now in the 21st century, when we know so much more than the people who were doing this in the Middle Ages or even way back before that. And one of the things we know, which is just incredible, I think, is that we know, and we've only known this for 100 years, not long, but we know that the universe isn't a thing, it's a process. We know it's a process of evolution. And we know it's been going on for around 14 billion years. And that it started with the simplest things you can possibly imagine. At the beginning of the universe was pretty much nothing but hydrogen, a gas. What happened to that hydrogen? Well, I'm looking at it now. It's become you. It's become you and me. And it's become conscious, and it's learned to talk. It's invented Zoom, and it's learned to meditate and to experience these deep awake states. This is one hell of a story. But unlike previous stories, where it's like, 7 days creation and all of that, this one is backed up by some really pretty damn hard evidence. So what I want to share with you is an evolutionary understanding of what these awakened states are. Because my hunch is that they are the leading edge of this 14-year process, billion-year process of evolution. That's what they are. And the reason they feel so incredible is because the most emergent thing, the thing which is, everything has emerged. Life has, the galaxies have emerged. Life has emerged. The psyche, this thing which you're experiencing, the meaning of my words in, has emerged. And now the psyche has learned to come into these deep awake states. The psyche is a really interesting thing. People talk about, one of my last book is called Soul Story. The word soul is simply the Germanic version of the Greek word psyche. They mean the same thing. The psyche and the soul are the same thing. Originally, of course, you can use words in any way you like. And what they're referring to is the indisputable, obvious, experiential fact that you are and are always experiencing two utterly different domains of reality. The sensory world and the imaginal world. The place in the sensory world, you're hearing these funny sounds that I'm blah, 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 that I'm making. And then in the imaginal, they have meaning. So we're going to play with the psyche, with the soul, which is the most emergent level of reality. And what we do with the psyche is we ideate. We divide the world up, and by dividing it up, we can understand it. So anything which you can understand, it's because you've got to have an idea for it. If you didn't, you wouldn't be able to know what it is. So I want to guide us into looking at something which we maybe don't normally pay attention to, which is, as well as everything being individual, everything is also all one. The current idea is it starts with the singularity, the one. The universe is a one, it's a universe. And it has become this huge, glorious, beautiful multiplicity. So one of the things to try and get with that is you are the universe looking at itself as you. The universe has evolved into Fiona and Catherine and Annie and Louise and Peter and Patricia and Karen and Chris and Danny. And then as you, it's looking at the universe. What else could you be? You didn't come from outside the universe. You're the universe looking at itself. Everything is. Every single thing is the one in relationship with itself. Plants, rocks, everything. Everything is the one in relationship with itself. So if we take that and put our attention on the one, what happens? Because normally, quite reasonably, we want to understand all the bits. Who are you? This is the table, this is up, this is down. That's how we move around the universe. And that's a perfectly good thing to do. But the universe is also a one. And what is that quality? What's the one quality that everything has? I'm looking at, behind me, there's a plant. It's green. It's got plant qualities. The sky in front of my window is kind of blue now. It's got blue, sky qualities. It's all different. I'm different to the plant. You're different to me. What is the one thing that everything's got in common? And the word that I find myself using, an old philosophical word, is being. Everything is being. Everything is being. The plant is being plant. Tim is being Tim. You are being you. The sky's being sky. But everything is being. And what is that quality of being? Well, it has no other qualities. In itself, it has no color. It has no shape. It has no form. And in that way, it reminds me of the idea in physics of a field within which everything is arising as information. There's one field which is evolving into which is taking on all these new emergent forms all the time, including you and me. So I think what's happening with this awakened state, which human beings have been exploring for hundreds and hundreds of years, I think a new way we can understand it is it occurs when a human being pays attention to that field of being. Now, they don't have to think of it with those words. In fact, you don't have to think of it at all. It can just happen spontaneously. But that's what's happening. You're paying attention to that fundamental oneness. Okay, a couple of more things I want to share with you, and then we'll pay attention to it, see what happens. Consciousness. What the hell's that? This is another area I've changed my mind. I won't go into my old idea. I'll just share you the new one. What is it? Well, what I notice is, and check this out for yourself right now, I'm conscious of whatever I pay attention to. I'm processing everything, but mainly unconsciously. But what I pay attention to, like I'm paying attention to you right now, and I'm conscious of you. I've not been conscious of my wife who's in the house, but I am now because I've just thought of her. You are probably not conscious, I suspect, of your left foot, but I bet you are now. Huh. So wherever you put your attention, it's like you process it in high definition. Things you're processing unconsciously, you're still processing them, but it's very low definition. You don't want to waste too much energy on that. But from everything you choose, that, this, and where you put your attention comes into high definition. So this is the secret of meditation. Right there. That's it, really. Which is, so if I can master where I put my attention, the thing I focus on will come into high definition. And I'll experience it in a much, much richer way. So a classic beginner's guide to meditation, you've probably all done it many, many times. I'll probably do it with you, actually, when we for a bit, in a minute, is pay attention to your breath. And I can remember being taught this when I was in my teens, going on my first Buddhist retreat or something. It was a Buddhist retreat. and I just thought, oh, I see. I've got to do this. I've got to do this thing, and it's so boring that I will become enlightened if I can get bored enough. But I've had long periods of meditation in my life. I've been very lucky. Long stretches of time. And what I found is the opposite. Actually, if you pay attention to anything, such as your breath, it changes instantly from something you weren't even noticing. You were just processing it unconsciously. You damn well notice if you stop breathing, of course. So you're processing it, but just not consciously. And then you take your attention, you put it on your breath, and there it is breath. And then you focus. And then suddenly, you feel it now even, breathing. Ooh, wow. Just the sensuality of it. It's kind of, breath is just, it's kind of sexy actually. It's kind of, and the more you let your attention just, and then the issue with thoughts and all that, they aren't a problem. Thoughts are great. You're having them now, aren't you? They're fantastic. The problem only is you can't pay attention to your focus and to your thoughts. Thoughts are just speaking to yourself, aren't they? That's all they are. They're imagining talking to yourself. So you can't pay attention to imagining talking to yourself and to your breath at the same time. One of them will go into being unconscious. So if your thoughts are worth paying them attention, hallelujah, pay them attention. But otherwise, it's good to have a time. Stop talking to yourself for 10 minutes. Talking to yourself is good, actually. It took 14 billion years to get you to the point where you could talk to yourself. Don't put it down. But like talking out loud, you do it, shush now and again, shush. And you stop talking to yourself and place your attention on your breath, and bam, your breath will come up. And then there's a moment where if you do that, you're one with the breath. Now, it's not a matter of thinking that, but you are. And what's happening there is the same when you became one with your lover, when you gazed in their eyes. It's just the breath. Suddenly there's one of you. As well, the separate individuals, obviously it's still the air and you, that hasn't gone anywhere, but there's a communion, let's say, a both and, in which you're also one with your breath. And what's happening is that you have started to intuit the oneness of being, that you are also one with the universe. And then if you extend that out, you're one with everything. Very simple practice at the heart of a huge number of meditation techniques. But that's it. We're going to do it in a minute. You focus on something. It's good to start with something simple, like the breath. It doesn't have to be breath. It could be a candle, could be a fingernail. But breath is nice. And I would recommend, I've developed such a strong relationship with just paying attention to my breath that I can slip into it, usually, bang, and that happens, like everything. The more you do it, the easier it gets. So you focus on something obvious, a sensation, because that's easier to focus on. And then when you've got the communion, then you can expand it, and there's the communion with everything. Everything is one field of being, isn't it? There it is. Okay, one last idea. And then we'll do something with it, and then we can chat around it and see where it all goes. This is a big idea, so I'm just taking a breath before I launch into it. Traditionally, there's been two ways of understanding these deep awake states. One is you as an individual are entering into a more emergent state of your soul, of your psyche. And you are deep awake. Or that's what I would, the language I would use. You're enlightened. You're in samadhi, whatever the different languages are. I'd stay away from those personally. They're too misleading, but you know what I'm saying. And then there's a different tradition, which I have come back round to. I started with this when I was young. I wandered away from it. And over the last period of my life, the last decade or so, maybe more, I've come back to it and I want to share it with you, which is, I think, when we come into these emergent states of the psyche, we actually can become conscious of something greater than ourselves. And I'm going to try and describe what I mean by that. I'm going to say it first in the misleading old language. If I said it in the misleading old language, I'd say you're coming into communion with God. And I want to say it again in what will inevitably be somewhat confusing new language, because it's new language. Because what I mean by God is not what has been meant by God in the past. Like everything, I think we need to re-understand it. Re-understand the experience that has been called God in an evolutionary context. So what I want to suggest is that reality is this one process in which everything is emerging. And when I say everything, I mean everything. Everything is one process of becoming in ever more emergent ways. And that the thing we experience as greater than ourselves is not where it starts. It's the most emergent level that has arisen in this 14 billion year process. So that the universe is flowering, if you will, into that experience that has been called God. And that what that experience is the communion of psyches, of souls. So you're sitting there on your chair with your body, which is one hell of a miracle. Because not that long ago, all of life was single cells, going about their business, being single cells. And then somehow, in this enormous, wonderful process of evolution, those single cells, trillions of them, form themselves into a human body, your body. You are a communion of cells. No single cell knows what it's like to be you, but every single cell is part of you, is you, of your body. The hypothesis that I've been following is that something similar is happening with the psyche. That we are coming together in deep communion with each other and forming a super psyche, if you like. Which is us, because we form it. But which is greater than us as an individual. And it's when we touch that that this love kicks in. So my favorite name for it is not God, because that's so misleading. The big guy in the sky with all of his rules and all of that nonsense. None of that. I would describe it as a loving presence that I touched when I was 12, and which I've been refinding and sharing ever since. So that when you come into that state of oneness, it's not an empty, oh yeah, it's all one. It's actually touching the leading edge of this huge process that we're in. And the most emergent place that I've ever found is when I'm actually communing in something greater than I am, and held in that enormous love. So, hopefully some of that made sense. I think I want to lead a little exercise with it, and then I want to have a chance for everyone to say whatever they want to say. Before I do, though, is there anything I've said which is just so confusing that you're sitting there going, oh, I don't know what he's talking about? And it would help if I just clarified it before we do the exercise. Because if there is, I'd like to do that. But if it's clear enough, then we'll just go into it. Is there anything that anyone wants to mention? Yes, Catherine.
What you haven't expressed that I'd be interested to hear from you is what you believe is the benefit of big love.
The benefit of it. Mm-hmm. Well, the benefit for me is it's the best feeling that I know. Sorry, I'm just watching the magic of Chris disappearing and then appearing in another square and then reappearing in this square. It's rather nice. I want to see everyone moving about. So yeah, look, for me, it's like, well, look, this is when I feel most alive, and when I feel most myself, and when I feel I have the most to give. And the benefit for us collectively is, I think it enables us to go beyond the things that divide us and to meet in something bigger. And I'm not someone of the school, as you've picked up, I'm sure, who says, yes, to experience oneness, you must cease to exist as an individual, as an ego, as a something nasty. I don't think that's right at all. I think that's a complete mistake. I think it's the absolute opposite of that, that your individuality is, like I said, the leading edge of 14 billion years of evolution to get to you as an individual. The individual is a huge achievement. We haven't been like this. We haven't been individuals like this for very long at all. I mean, the mere fact that we've got men and women on this call is a degree to we become individuals. It doesn't matter to me whether you're a man or a woman. You're you. It doesn't matter to me what your differences are. You're you. That's a whole new thing. We're individuals. We're not just collective beings. So that's great. But with that comes all these divisions. And what the love does is it reconciles it onto a higher level in which we can make those differences between us really valuable. And here's a little thought, which this is one of my favorite little thoughts, Catherine. So I will throw it in before we do the thing, which is, it's the opposite of dissolve your individuality like a drop in the ocean. It's like, no, fuck that. You just spent a lifetime getting individually together. It was a waste of time. Was it for nothing? Was it, it's like, okay, you've been doing decades of being an individual. Now that's a complete mistake. It's like, there's a lot of that in spirituality. If you look at your body, the communion of cells, what makes this a human body and just not like a big pile, like a slime mold is a big pile of cells, is that in a slime mold, all the cells are the same. So there's a big pile of slime mold. But with Tim, all the cells are doing something different. And it's the difference, it's the individuality of the different cells doing their different things that makes this a super system. Something which takes all those cells and takes it to another level. And my hunch from my exploration is that that's also what's happening with the super psyche, what used to be called God. And that what you bring to it is your individuality. That's what you bring to it. And that's why our individuality matters, and the love enables us to meet in that individuality. So, All right, so I want to say one more thing because I'm going to try this out with you. I've been running retreats all over the world for 25 years. And what I have found in that process is that whilst meditating on your own is a beautiful thing to do, the most powerful thing you can possibly do is actually to commune, not with your breath, not even with the oneness of everything, but to commune with another soul. So what I will do on our retreats, and I can put a plug in for the retreat. We've got a retreat in New Year in Glastonbury. Let me just mention that because it's going to be special. What we'll do is we'll prepare, and then I will get you in front of somebody in that deep awake state and go, have a look at that person. And then what you can do it with me now. You look at me and you see, well, you're looking at a screen, so you're seeing pixels representing a face. Fantastic. Here he is, Tim, all of his 64 years, all ingrained in this and there. There it is. But then what you're connecting with is the soul. Is the psyche. You can't see it. You can't see it, can you? Looking back at you, but you can't see it. But there it is. And we're connecting right now. You know, our bodies are in completely different locations, but we're connecting soul to soul. Because the soul isn't in space, is it? Where is it? It's not in space. The body's in space, the soul isn't. So we can connect directly, even now. And then if you keep looking, there's one of us looking at itself. And I promise you, having done this in Japan and Mexico and you're everywhere, if you connect with 20 people over an hour, you will be in that loving presence. You will have entered into God, and you will feel it as this enormous love. Now, we're in completely different places. We can't do that, but we can do this. I'm going to lead a meditation, and then if you have your camera on, and if you're hearing this without your camera on, you want to be part of this, put your camera on. Because what I'm going to do is that when we've done the meditation, we've prepared the space. It'll have to be fairly brief because there's a lot of us. I'm going to bring up people's faces on the screen. If you don't want to do this, just turn your camera off. But I thoroughly suggest you do. But just bring your face up and we will all commune with you for 30 seconds or something. It's not long enough, but it's a taste. It's a taste of what happens when we commune with each other. And that's the real thing that can come out of this, because you're looking at people all day, every day. And when you learn how to look in such a way that you commune, it really changes it. All right, that's the plan. Because it's Zoom, you might get a little thing come up going, do you want to turn on your microphone? It's trying to be helpful. It's not helpful. There's nothing you can do about it. Just say, no, I don't. And then either, there'll be some faces you can see. It's just look at the faces you can see and connect back. All right. I might put some music on for that bit as well. But first, I need to take my jumper off. You've got me hot and excited now. Get yourself comfy, my lovers, as they say in the West Country where I'm from. Get yourself comfy. Very good. And let's explore and see what happens. So just first of all, coming into quiet. So wherever you focus your attention and hold it, you'll start processing in high definition. And I invite you now to focus on breathing. And if you find yourself distracted by sensations or talking to yourself, don't worry. It's fine. Come back to breathing. And as I focus on my breath, I can feel it becoming richer, thicker, more sensual. The richness of the air coming in to my body and leaving. Focusing deeply so that your attention is full of breath. And now I want to invite you to immerse yourself so deeply that you commune with the breath, that you are one with the breath. Let's do that together. Let's do it now. And then I invite you to be conscious of the being of your body. And the being of the air all around your body. And the being of the chair you're sitting on. And the being of the room you're sitting in. And the being of the earth beneath you. And the being of the sky above you. And expand your attention to take in everything you're experiencing as one. So that you as an individual are embedded within that oneness of being. Just for a few moments, let's together dissolve the attention into the oneness of being, not paying attention to the differences of everything, but the oneness of all. And then bring your attention again to your individual body. And I invite you to be aware that you are embedded within this oneness, which is arising as you. That you are the one in relationship with itself as you. And see how it feels different to recognize that. And then I invite you to be conscious of all the levels of evolutionary emergence that you are conscious of. That you are conscious of the earth, matter, and that arising from that, you are conscious of life, your body, plants, animals, and that arising from that, you are conscious of psyche, soul, something no longer in space, imaginal, magical, dreamlike, enchanted. And then finally, I invite you to see what happens if you place your attention on the next level up, as it were, and commune with that which is greater than us as individuals, yet where we can meet as one. That boundless loving presence, that great mystery.
And Tim, thank you to you. As I said at the beginning, I knew we were lucky to have you, and that was just beautiful. Your words were profound, but that experience, which I've never done before, was just so beautiful. I want to do that now in all my Zoom sessions, but I'd have to make them double the length. But oh, it was just beautiful. So thank you again from all of us. And I think if there is a community that are becoming these individuals, I think it's us today that are focused on the heart. So thank you so much.